Hi, welcome to Buffzone. I'm Kyle Ringo. This is Brian Howell. It's bye week here in Boulder, and the Buffs are just kind of healing their wounds and preparing for USC a little bit and working with some of the younger guys. And before we get started, Brian, we should let everybody know that we're feeling for Larry Zimmer, the longtime voice of the Buffs, who fell over the weekend apparently and was hospitalized. And we just wish Larry to get well soon. He's a great guy, and I know a lot of Buff fans really love the guy. So thinking of you, Larry. But so now, the Buffs are 2-4, coming off two really emotional, tough losses. Where do you think this program stands right now?
I think they're in good standing. I think we've talked about it a lot it's been written a lot in the last few days. I mean, the biggest thing is I think they're progressing, but they've got to take that final step and somehow figure out a way to get over the hump. But I think, if you're a CU fan and you've been suffering all these years, you've got to like what you're seeing to this point. I mean, you want them to take that extra step, but I don't know how you can be disappointed in what you're seeing at this point.
Right, I totally agree with that. The one thing is, if you're a CU fan, you're looking at the rest of the schedule this season, you're wondering where in the world are they going to get over that hump. Tough games against USC, UCLA, a Washington team that seems to be, starting to find itself under Chris Peterson. Then you got a trip to Oregon, that's never easy, and a trip to Arizona, which went to Oregon and beat the Ducks.
Yeah, so, by the way, the Wildcats are the only undefeated team in the Pac-12.
And let's not forget Utah just beat UCLA.
Right.
So there's not an easy game. There's not a game that looks like the Buffs are gonna be favored to win it going into it anyway. So I'm not sure where they're gonna get over the hump. I do feel like this team has it inside itself to surprise one of these teams and maybe a couple of these teams, but obviously they're gonna have to go out on the field and do it.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I think already they've surprised some people. And earlier this week on the Pac-12 teleconference, I talked to a couple coaches they've played against, and Todd Graham of ASU sounded a little surprised that the Buffs were so much better this year, and the term he used was vastly improved.
Right.
And he even used the term. He said, "Look," he goes, "last year they came near, and he goes, my starters only had to play 2 quarters. This year it was a dogfight." And so they're starting to get a reputation of they play better football, and because of that, you've got to think that there's a chance in every game, and while we can't see it, there's a couple games in there that they can probably get.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if the Buffs, maybe went 2-4 down the stretch. I'm not sure which 2 games they're going to win and which 4 they'll lose, but we started this season talking about how we sort of both expected this to be a year where we saw improvement from the Buffs, but maybe it wouldn't show up in the standings.
Right.
And I think that's pretty much, playing out so far. And the Buffs are going to, it's going to have to be a remarkable second half for them to reach some of their team goals, bowl game, etc.
Right, I agree with you. And now, of course, at the beginning of the season, we didn't see some of the heartbreaking losses we've seen now. I think that, you look back at the first half, and they probably should have finished the CSU game. They probably should have beaten Cal. I don't know if you could say they should have, but they very well could have beaten Oregon State. I would say that, when you look at the results, they probably should have another win or 2. But again, they're right there, and after the way it's been the last few years, you got to be okay with that.
Right. So USC will be the first team up for the Buffs after they get this bye week in, and we'll be back next week to talk more about the Trojans.